eventually you get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Taylor Olmstead, and I want to welcome you back to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick three songs with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every occasion life throws at you. Joining me are my co-host, Tyler Reed.
At first, I was like, why is Taylor doing that? Is he just changing up the vibe? Is the South finally getting to him? But then I realized. Also, howdy. Hey, y'all.
And my other compadre, Sean Evans.
He stumbled over his intro like a cow down some stairs.
And now you have to keep it.
That's right. Well, we're not talking about country music this week, except that we kind of are. Tyler, what was our challenge this week?
Get a little shady this week. This week, we were trying to find a perfect song for when your neighbors are playing country music way too loud, and you just have to go inside. Submitted by Phil Armstrong, or Cincinnati Phil. Hey, you lovely people. If you want to submit your own challenge, please submit a challenge. Anything at all. Any moment of life that you need a soundtrack for, you should send one in. Just mess around and find out. And you can do that at No Repeat Pod on Instagram and Twitter, or norepeatpod@gmail.com for the email. Thanks so much.
So when this challenge came in, I think we all were kind of surprised by both its length and its specificity. This may be the longest verbiage of a challenge we've had so far. And
that's correct.
I was kind of like, man, this is not a situation I've really had specifically, but I've had like similar situations. And then something happened to me this week. You see, my next door neighbor, I think he does something with music. I don't know if he's a producer, if he's a rapper, if he's a singer, I don't know. But over the last week or so, he has been playing the same beat constantly for like multiple hours a day every afternoon. And I can tell it's not a song because sometimes the windows are open and I can be like out in the backyard and I hear it and it's just a bass line and drums. And I feel like he's doing something. Like, you wouldn't just listen to this over and over and over again unless you had a purpose for it. But of course, I'm tired of hearing the muffled version of it while I'm like trying to write or trying to do other things. And so I have been on the hunt for songs to drown things out with because I'm living right next to this beat at the moment. And I gotta say, it's surprisingly hard to find music to drown out other music with. Like, it's not like white noise. You can't just, like, turn on something that is intentionally noise canceling. It's like, you have to have something in the right frequency range to make it work.
So you had taken that in a bit of a different direction. What I had kind of interpreted as more of a palate cleanser. But I do think that also, I think my song also works in the same way yours does, in that it's a sound cancel out, or it's a white noise machine. That being said, my roommate Ryan is in a band, and they frequently have band practice. And I had previously had a roommate that was a drummer, so I have had lots of people making loud, inescapable noises for the last like couple years. So like really, for me, I would not be able to escape that no matter how hard I tried. So it's just kind of like, you know, I just try to. It's like, what am I gonna do? It's not like it's like unpleasant sound. It's just kind of like so overwhelming because I mean, like, I close the door, I try to turn, you know, I have my headphones on and I try to turn it up a little bit louder. You can't escape it. So
I don't. Okay, so I'm just gonna start out right out of the gate. I like some country music. I grew up and it was on. Like, my parents didn't really listen to it, but I feel like 90s country, for me at least, just sticks out. I feel like, and when you grow up in Cincinnati, I mean, there's 160 billion country stations. Probably, with the exception of WEBN and whatever alternative rock station is changing to 90-something at any point in time. I am a fan of country music. I do like it every now and again. I don't think that it's terrible. And in fact, the older that I get, the more I kind of like it. And I think that there are awesome influences that pull from country, and country also pulls a lot of influences from other genres, which is cool. That said, it is mega annoying to have somebody around you that's blasting country music. In fact, any kind of music, but since the challenge is country, I'm going to go ahead and pick on country for this one. So I picked a song that got stuck in my head because that's usually how I drown out country music, is by putting on music that I really like to hear, especially stuff that gets crazy stuck in my head. And I have had this song stuck in my head since I first heard it like a month ago, which is why I'm happy to get it on here because...
Hot track.
Well, yeah, basically, exactly. I'm just like, like, it sounds like a howling wolf in my mind, except instead of howling at the moon, it's typhoon, which is oddly close. I didn't mean to drop that one in there. That wasn't supposed to be funny. It just is oddly close.
See, I think you're onto something, Sean, because that was my second criterion. My first was it needed to be a wall of sound in like the mid-range frequencies that can truly just like take over whatever you're hearing outside of your headphones or your speakers. And then the second part was it had to be uber catchy. Because you're right, it's got to have a really sticky melody that you can like latch onto. You know, as much as we love Feel So Good, there's not a repeated hook in that song that can really like pull you in when something else is on in the background. That's the kind of song that you have to like sit down and experience and go on a journey with. This week I was looking for like a blunt force song.
Well, I think that's what makes country music so dangerous, is because it is written to be catchy. It, like, especially the radio hits, it's written to get stuck in your head. It's probably written by professionals. I imagine that a lot of artists probably write their stuff, but I feel like a lot of country is probably written by career songwriters. So they know like all the elements of how to make an earbug. It's not coming out off the line like terrible. So that said, that's what makes this a little bit more dangerous, because what happens when you go back in your home and all you can hear is, "She thinks my tractor's sexy." Like, you're just, it's over. It's over for you. Like, you gotta put it on some Tom Petty.
I wanted to find something that was the opposite of what country was, and that was kind of one of my other qualifiers, but...
The antithesis of country?
Huh?
The antithesis of country?
Yeah.
The anti-country, if you will. The city. Tyler's looking for that city music.
Oh, I was gonna say... Okay.
Tyler, why don't you give us some sounds of the city? What was your song this week?
This week I chose Vancouver by Anamanaguchi. I believe this is our first entry of Anamanaguchi onto the playlist. Does that seem about right? Think so?
Think so.
I feel like I've talked about him.
Yeah, I think everybody here is familiar with Anamanaguchi at some point in time. You have talked about them, but I think this is the first one, which is fine.
Yes. So, Anamanaguchi is a sort of glitch punk, pixel, chiptune band. So they kind of have like some punk sensibilities. They kind of combined digital sounds and analog sounds by being a band that uses chiptune sounds. And so I've been a fan of them for a pretty long time. And so Vancouver is a song that came off of a summer single from last year. And this song just really struck me. But I think when I was thinking about a song is I want something that was the antithesis of country, and so this is like there's no words, it's just sort of it's catchy, but it's not necessarily follows a specific like song structure. It's loud and it just has a lot of sort of a little bit more musical complexity to it. In which I will specifically note that at about the 30-second mark, there's this part where they kind of do like the opening like guitar riff, and then they stop, and then there's a drum fill, and then they pick it back up with the riff again, and like there's something about that the lack of note there that is more powerful than any note that you could play, and that sort of stuff really just gets me excited. And so like if I was hearing that in person, woo, that's a woo right there. So I just think this song is compositionally interesting. It's got lots of interesting, fun sounds, and I just think that it is almost what I view to be the literal opposite of country music.
Anamanaguchi is one of the bands that I feel like I should like more than I do, because I remember really loving their like big breakthrough album, Dawn Metropolis, and then just kind of falling off and feeling like, you know, I didn't really need any more from them, because it is a very acquired taste. It is a specific sound, and I guess I just didn't realize how much their sound had developed in whatever that is, like 14 years since that album came out. And I really like this as a refined version of that sound. I think the addition of more straightforward guitar riffs really helps. It makes the chip elements a little bit less overwhelming. But the thing that really drives this song for me is that killer drum part. Like, I feel like the drums in this are just everywhere. And it really brings a dimension to like these MIDI and like 8-bit kind of synths that you're not used to hearing with them, because like old video games had basically no bass and like no impact in the percussion. And so to get this like big loud live drum set on top of those sounds is really, really cool. I do think that this song has a few too many quiet passages for using it to drown out something else. Like when I was listening to it today while my neighbor was jamming, I could hear his music through the quieter sections of this a little bit, which wasn't ideal, but I do think it's a really awesome song, and I'm glad that it's on the playlist.
What an interesting band. I like this song. I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh, like I usually am about ready to dump on something when I say it's interesting like that, right? But when you hear them, I really just expect them to be just a 2x4 with a bunch of old game consoles and handhelds glued to it, run through like a MIDI controller or something, but they're not. It is a band that people that play guitars and use synths, and sound like they have some really cool pedals and stuff. I think not having lyrics works for them. And unlike Taylor, I don't think it's an acquired taste. I think it is a taste for somebody who already is into melodic, metal-y things. That's why I feel like I don't always seek out Anamanaguchi, but I appreciate who they are, and I appreciate the glitchy video game textures that they make, even though I don't play video games at all. I get it, and I understand where they're coming from, and I think that it's cool and experimental that they can use all these things. I'm watching a live performance of them right now, like a quarantine where they're all on their computers and stuff. It's fantastic to watch them play and hear all their little quirkiness. In the music video, it shows all their fans, which are, of course, all quirky. And I think Tyler would fit in at a lot of these places. I think that's why Anamanaguchi is his little jam. If and when I return to Ohio, if they ever come through there, we should all go see them, because I feel like it would be a blast to just go see this band live. It's so funny that it seems like a bunch of introverts that's in a party metal band, I guess. Party metal band. Yeah. How funny is that? Like, I feel like these guys, when they're all together, they're like hanging out there themselves, but it's like, well, what would you rather do? Well, I'd rather just kind of like chill on my own, or maybe play some video games with my friends, but then they go out and do this like crazy party rock thing. And I feel like just how loyal Tyler is to them probably just speaks to how loyal a bunch of their fan base is to them. So that's fantastic. I think this is a great song. Super excited that it's finally on here. I hope that they survive the pandemic okay, because they're so interesting.
If you're excited about this song, USA came out in 2019, and I feel like it really does a good job of sort of shaving off a lot of the like sort of like video gamey elements of like the the chiptune elements of their work. It's very transcendent. I would say that if you like this, but maybe aren't as into video games sounds, I think you should definitely check that out if you like this song enough. So,
well, if it's all right with you guys, I think I'll go next. This week I chose "We Won't Sleep" by Can't Swim. I honestly don't remember how or where I found out about Can't Swim. I'm assuming it was probably on a site like Punk News or something like that. They're like a lower tier contemporary pop punk band. They're from New Jersey. You know, they don't have like the kind of following that like a Wonder Years has, but they're certainly like decently well known within the scene. And the production on this record is really what sold me on it. The whole record just feels huge in a very like 2000s rock and roll way, where like the guitars are really in your face and the drums are mic'd loud, but there's this melodic vocal on top of it that kind of like pulls it all together, because I feel like this kind of sound could easily be overwhelmed by the guitars. And the lead vocal on this is just so almost soft. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it feels almost tender in moments in a way that I just find really alluring. The gang vocals on this are a little too high-pitched for my liking. It feels a little childish in moments. But I do think that it contributes to the wall of sound effect in the chorus to have the voices that high, because otherwise they'd get buried in the guitars. And when I'm trying to drown stuff out, I put this record on. Like, this is a really good album to listen to on a plane, because you just lose all of the noise around you because this mix is so loud. And, you know, it may not be like the most technically great record ever, but I just think the production on it makes it a lot more fun than an otherwise just okay pop punk record should be.
I think that there's a definite sound of bands that came out of the upper mid-Atlantic, not New York. I want to give New York, it's like it has its own sound, but that like South Jersey, Philly, all the way down through Baltimore probably sound. They sound like this. They sound like that mid-Atlantic post-hardcore pop punk mix that's kind of, oh man, I don't want to say it's like reverby, but it has like a fuzzy quality to it.
If I said the front bottoms,
yeah, well,
also
Taylor
from New Jersey.
Taylor has a type.
Didn't realize. That's fun.
Yeah,
they're both Jersey bands. I was like, they sound kind of similar,
right?
Anyway.
Well, I mean, Taylor has a type.
Sure.
Anybody knows this. They also know that I have a type. I'm sort of the same all the time. Yeah, you do. You're a freak. We all know. Thanks. This isn't about you. This is about Taylor's song. I think this is a good song. I have heard of this band before. I think they actually came up on my Spotify, probably because I listen to your guys' songs on Spotify. But this is a pretty good song. I need to listen to more of them. But I feel like when you started out your introduction to them and you were saying that you probably first heard of them on some sort of rock blog or indie mag or something like that, these guys fit that bill perfectly. They're a little bit unheard of. Their music is really good and consistent. From what I've heard, it has an audience of people that are still listening to rock and roll. They're definitely able to go and play up and down the East Coast. People will know who they are. That's really cool. And I think that there's a place for them in kind of killing those country music vibes, because they're not. they're very not that at all. I think that's one thing that, and unless you get, like, when you go to, because I live in the Mid-Atlantic now, when you go up and down here and you go to the cities, there are some people that listen to country music, but it's basically like it's like, how do I say it? Like in the Midwest, you can go into cities and find a lot of people that listen to country music. It's pretty prevalent, right? But here it feels like you go into these pockets where it's basically all R&B, rap, alternative music, rock and roll, and then there's like basically no country for a long time. Like I go for a long time here without even seeing pickup trucks, which doesn't make sense. Right? Like, how weird is that? I can look out my parking lot, there's not a pickup truck. And that's the number one selling car in America is the Ford F-150. And people who own that probably listen to country music. Just goes to show you how insane this is. So I think this is a great example. I think this really taps into that gap of that there is people out there that are like, whatever. I don't have to like it. It's not that I don't. I just don't listen to it. And I'm not even ashamed of that. I'm making my own stuff. It's great. These are my friends. They all in bands. We're all in bands together. The music is awesome. Let's go on tour.
You know, Sean brought up a really great point about a band that will just make albums and they will sound, you know, they'll improve or they'll do better in some aspects, but largely remain the same. And I feel like sometimes you just kind of need a band that just kind of plays by the rules. You know, like sometimes you really don't need Muse to go off into a hypersexual like EDM flavored like binge. You're like, I just kind of want Muse to sound like how they always sound. So like I can definitely understand like why you kind of sometimes just need a pop punk band just to do what they're gonna do. And that's great. I mean, and I think the song definitely provides that in spades. That being said, I do think it does it would have to depend on hearing the rest of the album, but it does seem like they do have some interesting shifts just sort of in the composition at all. You know, because I feel like sometimes, like, you listen to a pop punk song, like, there is no shift in a damn thing in those songs. Like, they're gonna do bridge chorus, and then it's like that drum is never gonna stop just doing the same 4/4. You know, they're just and this guitar's not gonna do anything, but at least like this got some gang vocals. You know, this has some kind of things kind of weaving in and out, and so it's nice, it's great, and I definitely think it works towards your narrative. I didn't think that I needed a wall of sound, but I do feel like that this does provide that. And, you know, I definitely don't think it's like all on max, right? This isn't a song that's like you, like, it's not muddy. You can hear all the parts, but it is very, very loud. And that's really nice to hear, especially, I feel like sometimes you're pushing up the volume when you're like running, you're like trying to pull hard, you're like just trying to get through it, and sometimes you need the extra volume. You just don't ever get there with some songs. And I do think the production on this is nice, loud, just great. Good pick.
So we want to take a second to recommend another music podcast that you'll probably like if you like this show. Song Surfing is a music discovery podcast featuring the best independent music from around the world. John Cale is a multi-instrumentalist, singer, and songwriter who trolls through all of the places that independent music is found online: SoundCloud, Spotify, Instagram, YouTube. And he puts together these half-hour long-ish, 40 minutes-ish playlists every week with stuff that you've never heard of from places you've never heard of. I've been listening for a couple weeks now, and I've found a ton of cool bands. So if you're in a musical rut, you should definitely check out Song Surfing wherever you get your podcasts. All right, well, Sean, that just leaves you. What do you have for us?
All right, so this week I have Typhoons by Royal Blood. think we probably have. I've had a song by them on a show before.
I believe it was
I
in
don't
his
know.
Dudes Brunch days.
Yeah, I feel like it was too. It's been a while.
They have never been
So-
on this show.
Okay. So just kind of to put it in reference, Royal Blood is a two-piece band out of England. Bass player, drummer, they sound huge. It's amazing. This is their most musy album ever, probably. Just want to slip that one in there. I think they just put out a new album. I don't know if it's out. Yeah, this song came out at the end of January, so it must be coming out here pretty soon. They've exploded in popularity over the past few years. I think their initial album was just a smash hit. So yeah, I think. So when I picked this song, it's super catchy, at least for me. I can't get any of the stuff out of my head. It's amazing. Oh God, it hurts me how catchy it is. And I watched an interview where he was talking about how he writes songs, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I just kind of like puts them down a little beat, then I kind of fill it in with some other kind of mumbly stuff, and that's how I write songs." And I'm just like, you, like, you can't do that. Like, I'm gonna bleep that one out, but I don't care. Like, it's so hard to write a song. He just makes it sound so easy. It's like, it's inspiring. So the other reason that I picked this song, and I picked this band really, is because I've watched a lot of Rig Rundowns, which is a guitar YouTube thing where they go and like talk to these players, really famous players. And I secretly enjoy watching country rigs because they're basically like, okay, how much do you think, just give me a thing here. How much do you think an average country guitarist has in their rig? Like, how much equipment do you think?
Like
Like
money?
an amp,
Oh,
a guitar.
Oh, I'm sure the pedal racks are insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I mean. When you watch these, it is mind blowing how much money these people, country artists in particular, spend on guitar equipment. They make the Edge look like he's playing on like a Fender Tweed with a little blues driver in front of it. I mean, they're talking like multiple Klons, which is like $1,000 pedal, even more, just for the stupid pedal. Vintage amps, tons of guitars, all vintage, and to play like little licks. And it just blows my mind. I was like, I want to listen to a band that is two people with a bass that plays both bass and guitar parts and a drummer and makes a huge sound. They don't need a lot. You could just do it and do it the right way. It's amazing. This is the perfect thing for me to like get rid of it. To drown out that country music. So I'm curious what you guys think.
It's really hard not to talk about musical equipment when you talk about Royal Blood, because when we initially talked about them years ago on our old podcast, Dudes Brunch, Sean sent us a rig rundown with the singer-guitarist for this band. And like he mentioned, he's playing a bass guitar, but the important detail here is that he's running that bass guitar through a bass amp and a guitar amp at the same time to create both sounds out of one instrument. And so every time I listen to a Royal Blood song, I'm always thinking like, how is this melody operating? Because when you listen to a traditional rock and roll band, you have like at minimum a bass guitar and an electric guitar that are playing bass line and melody respectively. He's only playing the one thing with the occasional overdub. And so building a song around a melody like that, like Sean said, like he makes it seem so simple, but the melody at the core of the song has to be rock solid or the whole thing doesn't hang together. It's like you only have one instrument to really drive this song. And I think Typhoons is a really good example of them like pushing to the absolute limit of that technique. Like there are a lot more overdubs on this song than there were on probably the whole first Royal Blood record. He's adding in little solos, he's adding in little guitar flourishes, but the core of the song is still that unison bass guitar part. And I think you can really see them kind of like bumping up against the limits of their format, and it makes me nervous that they're gonna like pull a 21 Pilots and like have to tour with a pre-recorded like band behind them because they can't play all the instruments on stage. Like, if you're gonna do that, just get backup musicians. It's fine. But for now, as a song, I think this is an excellent song. I think you're right. You can hear the Muse influence. The little bit of falsetto flourish is very Matt Bellamy. This is kind of, to Tyler's point, like what I want Muse to be doing now instead of whatever it is they've been doing since like 2013. Like slightly dancey, heavy rock. This is what I want. Where are you, Matt Bellamy?
As soon as you talk about the M band, it always seems to stir controversy with so many fans. Like,
they abandoned us.
Well, at least they started making good music around 2013. It's just like you can just see like half the people's fists just start to ball up, like they're about ready to fight. Like, oh, Animals was a great song.
I'm glad that they made their magnum opus Black Holes and Revelations and just called it quits. They just said, you know what, guys, we made our best album. We're stopping making music. And I'm glad that they did, because nothing, Knights of Sidonia is...
It's like people who think Panic at the Disco is Brendan Urie. Like, get on out of here. There used to be 4 other people in that band.
Woo! Yakaroni and cheese. Oh my god. Anyway... I mean, I already love this band, so this is already like, okay, yeah. Sean picked finally picks Royal Blood on this podcast. Honestly, it's taken so long, I figured you might not have liked them anymore. Which, I feel like it was a surprise. I feel like that, I'm like, why would Sean ever do that? Because it's...
Well, their second album was just okay.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But I think it's interesting that you're talking about how, like, their format has like limits to it, but so do the White Stripes. Maybe like 4 or 5 albums.
But they progressively added more and more instruments. Jack White started playing piano and then eventually organ
and mandolin, and they all had eventually the stage was basically the size of Delaware because Jack loves to run in between his instruments. That's his whole philosophy, make music hard again. That works on a couple different levels, but just go for it. He eventually, it was, could you imagine, okay, so White Stripes, 2-person band, rolls up to the stage, and basically there's a semi-truck of instruments they have to offload to do one concert. Defeats the purpose. Also, I think it's illegal to have that much peppermint-flavored themed things outside of December anywhere in America. I'm pretty sure that's not okay.
It was a great concept for the time, but looking back on it, we're glad Jack White is on his solo thing now.
He's doing something else. Yeah.
Right.
And if I feel like I remember Katie Tunstall was like a person people are like talking about because she had like a stop box thing, and she did like an SNL performance where she was doing everything by herself. But you kind of lose the plot a little bit when you kind of are known for that thing, and then you kind of stop doing it. So in a way, I like how I pulled that out of nowhere. This 2005.
That was a great pull.
Black Horse and Cherry Tree, great song. Anyway, it's the trick, can only go on for so long. It kind of becomes like a gimmick at some point. But I don't know. I feel like as long as they're writing cool stuff, I don't know. I don't feel like their concept is that tied to their specific format. If they just added a bass player or someone just playing another instrument, I don't think it would ruin it, and I wouldn't be like, oh, whatever. If it was like Matt and Kim got Matt, Kim, and Jeff, you're like, okay, well, I don't know about this Jeff guy who just plays the tambourine. I don't think that's what we really need. Anyway, A Wall of Sound, clearly not country music, has a different sort of catchiness to it. Loud, abrasive, not talking about your dog dying. Perfect pick.
All right, now it's time for notable B-sides. Those were songs that are so close to getting on here but didn't quite get it. But honestly, let's not lie. If your neighbor's having a country party, it's going all night. If you know that song, just, I don't know, just shout out to you. Sorry, you probably did not make it this deep in the episode, but whatever. All right, B-sides, go.
I only got 2. I have Xanthrax by Shredders, part of the Minneapolis hip-hop collective Doomtree, and a classic that I revisited this week, Head Like a Hole by Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Ooh, also appropriate. I had just one other one. I was thinking about doing a little Standards. Starfish by Standards, which is probably would not have been loud enough for Taylor. But it's a nice little sort of math rock, sort of tapping guitarist and drummer doing.
All right, so I had one other Royal Blood song off the new album, Limbo. It's basically the perfect mashup of the Black Keys, El Camino, and any album by Death from Above 1979 with a little bit of disco in there. Awesome. The other one I picked is, fortunately, I just really wanted to go with that bass and drum tonight. So Death from Above 1979, they just put out a new single, 1 to 1. It's great. I love these bands. I really like Death from Above 1979. I feel like if you're getting into this bass and drum rock band thing, definitely start with Royal Blood. If you're like, this isn't gritty enough, then go to Death from Above 1979. The lyrics are there for them. Don't count them out because you're just thinking like, they're just a little like bass and drum rock band. Their songwriting is amazing.
Well, Tyler, if people want to rock out with you, where can they do that?
Hey everybody, if you want to find my design illustration work, you can find it at rudepets.club. And as always, you can find me on the socials as Rudepets Club on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean, if people want to turn it up to 11 with you, where can they do that?
You can find me on Instagram at TellySean.
And if you want to jam with me, you can find me on the socials as at TC Olmstead. All of these songs will be on the official No Repeat podcast playlist. We are off to record our monthly Patreon exclusive podcast, Billy Joe Armstrong's Middle School Notebook, where we're going to talk about musicians who need to act right and give our full comprehensive review of the new Lana Del Rey record, Chemtrails Over the Country Club. So if you want to hear that, go support us on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. We'll be back next week with another episode of No Repeat.